there was not enough flour to bake even an oven full of bread. The mill couldn't grind the wheat that had been sent over. There was just enough flour to bake 3 loaves of bread. When they had seen that there was not enough flour to feed all the girls in the school, they went to the parish priest, Father John Vianney, fondly called the curé. He told them to use the little they had. They took the small amount of flour they had and began to knead it. The trough filled, overflowing with dough, as on days when they had a large sack of flour. Had Curé prayed? Did he ask the Lord to multiply the loaves as he had on the Mount of Beatitudes? It is definite that a miracle was granted by the Lord for Father John Vianney's spiritual children. Saint John Marie Vianney was born on May 8, 1786, in the French town of Dardilly, France. He was the 4th child in a humble family of 6 children, born to Matthew Vianney and his wife Marie. The Vianneys were devout followers of the Catholic faith and helped the needy. Marie was responsible for leading Saint Vianney into the religious life. The turbulence of the French Revolution marked Saint Vianney's childhood. It was a dangerous time for religious people, and many priests were forced into hiding. They conducted their ministry in secret, risking their lives in the process. But the Vianney family traveled distances every Sunday to worship and pray in secret. Because of this, young John saw priests as particularly heroic to the people. He continued to believe in the bravery of priests and received his first communion catechism instructions in private by 2 nuns who lost their convents to the Revolution. When he was 20 years old, John was allowed to leave the family farm to learn at a presbytery school in Écully. There, he learned math, history, geography, and Latin. In 1809, the French government drafted him into its army to fight a war for Napoleon. Although he was already involved in religious studies and should have been exempted from such service, soldiers were needed. 2 days into his service, John fell ill and required hospitalization. As his troop continued, he stopped in at a church where he prayed. At this point, he met a young man who offered to help guide him back to his group. This meeting marked the beginning of a significant event in Saint Vianney's life, when the young man led him to a group of deserters who had gathered in the village of Les Noé, deep in the mountains of Les Forêts. The harsh winters isolated Les Noé, and this protected the deserters from surveying gendarmes. Saint Vianney lived in Les Noé for 14 months and assumed the name Jerome Vincent. As Jerome Vincent, he opened a school for the village children. When the war ended and amnesty was granted to all deserters, John went to the seminary to become a priest. In 1811, he entered a seminary, but John struggled with his studies. 3 years later, he was dismissed because he was unable to grasp the theological subtleties he was supposed to study. But the Bishop of Grenoble was sufficiently impressed by Vianney's firm character and level-headed judgment. He ordained John Vianney a priest in 1815. He was then sent to the remote French community of Ars in 1818 to be a parish priest. This parish was, at the time, in a very pitiable condition. The fear of God and the practice of virtue were rare things there. The new curé brought a mixture of kind understanding and personal strength to the people of Ars. In the beginning, his sermons were directed against drinking and swearing. He tried to show his parishioners the value of resting from work on Sunday and of going to church regularly. Throughout the entire day, he knelt before the Blessed Sacrament and prayed for his erring sheep. His zeal at prayer was soon noticed. He had no gift for learning, but he did have the gift of understanding what was in people's hearts and minds. That made him a wonderful confessor. So people from all over France came to Ars and asked John to hear their confessions. Sometimes he spent as many as 16 hours in a day listening to people confess their sins. It took St. Vianney 10 years to bring spiritual renewal to Ars, but his perseverance resulted in greater attendance in his church and the people turning away from their vices. Vianney's success as a confessor was accompanied by increased personal difficulties. During the few hours of rest he allowed himself at night, he was disturbed by strange noises, sometimes by such discomfort that he felt he was being physically beaten. Once his bed caught fire. He understood these troubles to be persecution by the devil and reacted by intensifying his own prayers and penances. Dedicated to the Blessed Sacrament, he spent much time in prayer and practiced much mortification. He lived on little food and sleep, while working without rest in unfailing humility, gentleness, patience, and cheerfulness, until he was well into his 70s. It was well known that the saint was a miracle worker. One night, while reciting his prayers, he was seen to rise into the air with his features transfigured, an orb of light encircling his face. The fame of the blessed success and the holy life of the priest of Ars spread rapidly. Strangers came in ever-increasingly numbers in order to have their consciences set aright and to obtain advice and consolation in every type of need. Next, John began a home and school for deserted and orphaned children. He was concerned that in the wake of war, many people in France had no true religious education, and he used his homilies to try to teach about the faith. For 41 years, John served the tiny parish of Ars. Then, on August